Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating ancient text, focusing on the concept of he ton pon tam, which essentially translates to cause and effect. You know, this source material is an incredibly detailed and honestly, sometimes intense collection of spiritual parables outlining the strict rules of karma. It's definitely not just some abstract philosophical treatise. It's a super practical, story-driven manual designed to show exactly how our actions ripple through the universe. So if you've ever wondered how ancient Eastern philosophies practically applied the concept of karmic debt to everyday life, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. Real quick, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the law of karma, the cost of taking life, the cycle of rebirth, the power of compassion, and finally, how you can actually go about changing your fate. All right, starting off with Section 1, the law of karma. According to the text, the universe operates on this strict, completely escapable accounting system. Think of it like a massive cosmic spiritual ledger. Heiton Pontam, or cause and effect, basically dictates that every single action, especially violence or harm directed towards animals, creates a very real karmic debt. And this debt doesn't just magically disappear over time. It's meticulously tracked by unseen forces and must eventually be settled. The source material is crystal clear on this. Ignorance of the law is absolutely not an excuse, and the universe literally never misses a transaction. The text illustrates this vividly with the story of a woman named Mrs. Hua. The cause and effect here are direct and shockingly swift. So a local man printed a book urging people to stop killing animals. Mrs. Hua found the book, got annoyed by it, and tore it up, tossing it right in the trash. Well, the consequence? Get this. The very next day, while she was buying live fish to cook, a fish actually leaped up and struck her directly in the eye. And according to the text, this wasn't just a simple bruise. Her eye became horribly infected, filled with maggots, and she died in pure agony. The message here is stark. Disrespecting the message of compassion brings immediate, horrific retribution. Moving right along to Section 2, the cost of taking life. The text goes into deep detail regarding the severe consequences, not just of taking a life directly, but even profiting from harm. This striking quote from Master Lianxi, who is a revered figure in the source material, really sets a heavy tone. He says, "If you must live by creating bad karma, it is better to starve to death." Wow. The text argues that the short-term survival gained by butchering or exploiting animals is vastly outweighed by the massive long-term spiritual suffering it guarantees. Let's look at exactly how the text visualizes this suffering. Take the demise of butcher Shao, for example. One morning, Shao was preparing to slaughter a large pig. Now, the text specifically notes that the pig actually knelt down and cried tears, practically begging for its life. Shao, just annoyed by the delay, stabbed it anyway. Later that same day, while he was trying to hang the heavy, quartered pig from a ceiling beam, Shaw's stool slipped. He fell, and his own hand was completely impaled on the massive iron meat hook. He hung there in midair, entirely helpless. The text recounts that he survived for 20 agonizing days, thrashing and squealing exactly like the pigs he had killed before finally succumbing to the pain. And you know, it's not just the direct killer who pays the price. In another truly haunting anecdote, we read about the mother of a crab seller. She lived very comfortably off the profits her son made by tying up and selling live crabs. However, she suddenly developed agonizing abdominal pain the doctors just couldn't cure. Realizing it was a karmic illness tied to her son's dirty money, she found that the only way to get even a moment's relief was to literally swallow the exact same ropes her son used to bind the crabs and then pull them back out of her stomach. The text uses this to show that complicity in suffering breeds inherited suffering. This part really hits hard because the text constantly demands empathy from the reader, using these profound rhetorical questions to engage us. Take the story of hunter Wu Tang. He was a master archer who shot a baby deer right in front of its mother. The mother deer stayed right there, licking her fawn's wounds. Wu Tang aimed at another shape in the bushes, fired, and hit it perfectly. But the cry that came back was human. He had just shot his own son, who had been trying to help him corner the deer. As Wu Tang collapsed over his son's body, the text says a voice from heaven asked him, "Are the lives of his child and your child equal?" It's a completely devastating way to reframe the value of animal life. That brings us to Section 3, the cycle of rebirth. So what if you die before paying up? What happens if the karmic debt isn't settled in this lifetime? 6. That represents dynasties, hundreds of years. According to the text, a former general named Ho Jing was killed in battle. But because of the immense violence he committed during his life, his soul was trapped. When his spirit possessed a family member centuries later, it revealed that he had spent the last 6 dynasties reincarnated repeatedly as a snake. Death is not an escape from the ledger. It's simply a transfer to a lower, much more vulnerable form. And this brilliantly illustrates what the text calls the illusion of separation. These parables demonstrate a pretty terrifying concept. The animals consumed at a banquet today might very well be your former relatives. For instance, a man named Gua Shenzi went into a spiritual trance and saw a vision of his mother in hell. She was drowning in a pool of blood, completely covered in the exact same snails she used to feed to her ducks when she was alive. The text insists that without spiritual intervention and a conscious behavioral change, souls are locked in an unending cycle of eating and being eaten across countless lifetimes.
Okay, let's pivot to section 4, the power of compassion.
It's not all doom and gloom, I promise. Let's explore how the text highlights the redeeming power of compassion, because the ledger can be balanced. There's a really stark contrast presented here. Eating meat or hosting grand banquets offers short-term pleasure, a fleeting taste, but guarantees long-term spiritual suffering. Conversely, the practice of releasing animals, which is a huge theme in the text, offers an act of immediate mercy that yields immense long-term spiritual rewards. It's essentially the ultimate karmic investment.
According to the principles outlined, acts of mercy yield profound, tangible rewards in this life, not just the next. The text lists things like extended lifespans, overcoming incurable illnesses, escaping disasters, and ensuring a favorable rebirth. One pretty charming story tells of an official named Dong Zhaoji who went out of his way to save a large drowning ant. Years later, when Dong was unjustly imprisoned and facing execution, he had a dream of a man in black telling him how to escape. He woke up to find the wooden locks of his cell had been chewed entirely through by thousands of ants, sent by the ant king he had saved. Talk about a return on investment.
Finally, section 5, changing your fate. So how do we actually fix this? How does the text claim one can actively alter their destiny? Let's look at the practical application. There are 4 main consequences of deep karmic debt. The text shares a story of a wealthy merchant who had everything in the world except an heir. He sought out a wise sage who told him that his lack of children was one of the 4 main indicators of past karmic violence. The other 3? Chronic illness, constant life obstacles, and a short lifespan. The actionable steps the text prescribes for altering your fate are incredibly straightforward. Step 1, adopt a vegetarian diet immediately. This stops the accumulation of any new karmic debt. Step 2, actively release animals destined for slaughter. This pays off your old historical debt. And step 3, engage in spiritual study and mindfulness, reciting sutras and maintaining a pure heart. The merchant followed these steps, released tens of thousands of animals, and, according to the text, was finally blessed with a healthy heir. The text insists these practices provide literal, unseen protection. Consider the story of the 2 salt boats. A devastating storm rolled in, and unseen, deadly spirits were ordered by a mountain deity to sink the boats. However, the spirits reported back that they couldn't even get close. Why? Because the helmsmen of both boats were devoted vegetarians actively following spiritual precepts. Their adherence to compassion created an invisible shield that literally saved everyone on board. As we wrap up this explainer on Hiton Poltam, I really want to leave you with this question. If every single action truly has a consequence, what unseen chains are attached to your everyday choices? The ancient text we explored today challenges us to look far beyond our plates and our immediate convenience, urging us to recognize the profound, hidden weight of our decisions. It asks us to consider that compassion isn't just a nice idea, but the fundamental law of a balanced universe. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep questioning the mechanics of the world around you.